Well, welcome back into the Mid-Norfolk garden here. We are today going to plant some Agapanthus and show you a technique for getting those established nicely. The idea came to us with this rather fantastic tall variety, which has been here now for around 10 years, and the last couple of years, because it's been surrounded by quite a bit of competition, hasn't done much. But we cleared around it last year, fed it, and it's rewarded us with these rather fantastic balls of flower held at around 3 to 4 feet, and looking out through the window and seeing these flowers really has inspired us to plant some more. And this is a due south aspect. This area of ground is where we're going to do it. We've cleared this of a rather invasive aster that's been growing here for about 4 or 5 years. This is a bucket of it that we're going to plant out into the dell and let it run riot down there. But this was a complete thug and was overgrowing everything, invading into the grass. Grew to about a metre and a half by the end of the season, and was cutting down the light from this window. And we've got the further idea by having a vase of cut Agapanthus that we've been looking out through of the hall to this area. So we're going to plant these 3 Agapanthus in this area. This is a tall variety again. It's called Queen Mum. I've bought these from a local garden centre. They're quite nicely established little plants. A couple of them are much better crowns than others, 2 or 3 growths. You can see the root growth in these pots really starting to romp away. This smaller one take a little longer. They do take a while to get established, Agapanthus, but they should grow very well on this southern aspect and give us beautiful flower in front of this window at this time of year. So we've prepared the soil, got all that root out of the aster, and we're now going to prepare and position these so we're ready to plant them. First thing we're going to do here is position the plants where we want them to grow. Now, you want to give these plants plenty of space. They are eventually going to form clumps around the size of this one. So you don't want to put them too close together, and actually in this narrow border in front of the house we're probably just going to plant these in a row, spacing them around 1.5 foot apart. So Kate will just position these up and then we'll start digging our holes in preparation. So we've positioned these plants now. You'll see that we've planted them, or positioned them certainly, quite far back against the wall almost. The spread on these plants as a guide is around 50 centimetres when they're fully grown. It's half a metre, and by planting them this far back it will give us the opportunity to keep a bit of earth in front of them, but they'll also really appreciate the warmth off the back of that wall, and that will help them grow and flower, and the flowers will arch forward towards us, which is what we want from this position when we're walking past and seeing them. And you'll also get that lovely display from inside the window.
We'll talk about holes.
Well, here are our 3 holes that we've dug. The soil here is really quite poor, very dry. It's a very dry part of the garden, this, particularly over the summer months, and it's quite sandy. Very little humus in this soil. It's really been sucked dry by those plants that have been growing so vigorously here over the last couple of years. But Agapanthus should be fine with that. They don't really need an awful lot, and they'll tolerate quite a lot of poorness as far as nutrition is concerned in the soil. Can always supplement with a liquid feed. So what we're going to do now is just water into the holes. This is a great technique for making sure that when you're planting plants out, they're going into a nice moist and not compacted, but not a bed with any air pockets in it once you've been digging in here. So we're just going to fill that watering can. See, we really puddle these down and then just let that completely soak away before you start planting. You'll see the holes here that we've filled with water draining quite slowly despite it being so dry. If you wanted, you could just put the pots into the water in these holes to soak them, but these have actually been pre-soaked. They're really very, very wet already. It just opens one of these up.
It's not actually been in there very long, has it?
See how wet the compost is there. Good root formation. Not actually been in these pots too long, have they?
Yeah.
Enough just to hold the root ball, which is good. What you don't want to do is take a pot out of a pot and it all fall apart. Sometimes if the roots are very compact you do need to tease them apart a little, but I don't think that's going to be necessary with that one. Still waiting here for the soil to drain away before we place this in its bottom position. Obviously we've got to get all the water out or drained in that hole before we do that, so we can get the level right for this plant. Okay, so this central hole is drained nicely now, and you can see what the puddling of the water does is give you a lovely flat base, and all the air pockets will have gone out of where we've been digging that hole. This is rooted really well. Needs a bit of teasing apart, if anything, the roots on that one. Just so it doesn't go round and round, we'll just start prising some of these roots open so that they go out into the soil rather than forming a root ball like that. And then it goes down into the hole. You see we've got the level just about right there. We want to plant these just about an inch lower than the surrounding soil so that they're in a slight depression so that you can keep them well watered over the first season. And these will certainly need watering and feeding regularly in this position until they get their roots well out into this bed. We're going to backfill around the plant now, just pulling some of that soil that we've dug out back around it, and then Kate will firm the soil around the plant so that it's sitting very soundly in its position with no rocking. Pushing down around the root, just using her hands.
To move some of this soil so it's not piled up against the head.
Maybe a little high. There we go, there's the first one in. We'll just water that over the top, remove any leaves that have been damaged while we've been planting it, just to tidy it up, and then we'll give it a further water when we've got the other two in position. Okay, so now we've got all three in their final planted position. We've left slight depressions around them for when it comes to watering, and we're just going to water them in now with a final good puddling of water. It should soak round the roots to make sure that there's no drying out of any of those roots, and it will also make sure that there's no air pockets left around the roots, despite us having puddled them onto a wet bed and then work the soil really well around them. So it'll be interesting to see which of these three plants gets established quickest. The two on the left obviously were more established plants in the pot with much better root balls, but the fact that the smaller one on the right hadn't formed a root ball might enable it to get its roots out into the surrounding soil quicker and grow on. So we'll come back and revisit these, hopefully show you how they're coming on later in September, and have some flower to show you this time next year.